Okay, let's go ahead and get started. A few administrative items. First, a reminder the problem set 9 is due today, so make sure that's turned in before you leave. We're going to go ahead and distribute problem set 10. As I indicated last time, it's a review problem set, so you can expect material on the final to be, not so distantly related to material you find on problem set 10. That said, the problems on problem set 10 will not translate directly into the final, so the problems you'll see on the final will be more like siblings and they will be like clones. Okay. Another administrative item, we'll have a review for the final this time Tuesday, next week. The same classroom is available, so we'll just meet here in 5 days. Hold on, let me do somewhere there. Okay, that's it for administrative items, except that I'd like to ask I want to do some course evaluations at the end of the class today. Could I have someone volunteer to do two things? First of all, to wave their hand when we have 15 minutes left, because that's when I'll pass out the evaluations. And second of all, to return those evaluations to Diana Lazo and Jean Annie Hall, who will be collecting those things. Is there someone willing to head down to Jean Annie after this too? Okay, that's great, thank you. So I'm going to ask you to collect the evaluations at the end of class. Thank you. Okay, any questions about administrative stuff before we proceed? Yes, Wes. So there's 3 hours or 3 hours minus 10 minutes scheduled for the final exam. You can expect it to be longer than the midterm. I wouldn't, my aim is not, I don't think it's instructionally useful to make you guys solve problems as quickly as possible. So I prefer not to have you under a lot of time pressure. So I will try not to make the exam too long. Occasionally I fail when I try to, I'll do my best. Yeah.
Just for clarification, so with this VR test, how is this?
Oh yeah, right, good question. So Kevin asks, what the heck is this problem set 10 and why should we turn it in? Yeah, so turn it in at the final. I think the final is the 14th. I'm sorry, what I mean is to say is, when you come take the final, bring your problem set with you, turn it in when you turn in your final. That way you'll have it to refer to if you wish you're in the final. Because, as with the midterm, the final will be open book, open note, closed mouth. So just turn it in when you turn in your final. And as with the problem set 5, the review we had for the midterm, we may not grade all the problems on problem set 10, particularly if they're very closely related to stuff that appears on the final. Yes. Does somebody know the answer to that? Is it here? Okay, great. So I guess it's here. I should check it. I guess it's here. Which is fine. This is a nice report. Yes. So we will. I don't have an answer to that. It would be nice if we could hand it back on Tuesday, wouldn't it? So we'll look into that. Okay. Other questions? Yeah. Come here. I think it's more likely that we'll get it back to you on Tuesday than it is that we'll post solutions. Okay. Other questions? All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'd like to spend today pursuing, sort of finishing up our topic of externalities. So I like these last 2 lectures because we tie together some stuff about demand that we did in the first part, some stuff about supply that we did, after the midterm, and now we're dealing with externalities and thinking about sort of optimal ways to address those externalities, which is the kind of topic that ought to excite you if you're interested in environmental economics. So here we are. I'm going to first of all pay attention to something that George Stigler says. George Stigler was a long time, was an economist at the University of Chicago for many decades. He won the Nobel Prize in 1992, I think. And he was, among other things, he did a lot of work on a variety of topics, but among other things, he was a student of economic thought. And I was a grad student during the period when Stigler was still alive, he's dead now. And one of his favorite things to do was to go to seminars at the University of Chicago and to be somebody up there presenting a paper. And Stigler had a list of things, he was very funny, but he had a list of things he'd say for sort of unsuspecting speakers up there presenting papers. And one of those things was, Adam Smith said that. You got this guy presenting their job market paper with a brand new research, and he'd suggest that Adam Smith had thought of it 200 years earlier. Anyway, so here's something Adam Smith said. This is anticipating Pigou. So Adam Smith did say this. So Pigou was doing this up in the 20s, remember? So Adam Smith says, when the toll upon carriages of luxury coaches, post-chaises, etc., is made somewhat higher in proportion to their weight than upon carriages of necessary use such as carts, wagons, and the indolence and vanity of the rich is made to contribute in a very easy manner to the relief of the poor, by rendering cheaper the transportation of heavy goods to all the different parts of the country. So he has this idea that you ought to be imposing a tax or a toll on conveyances, on transportation, that depends on how heavy the thing is. So you want to make the toll proportional to the weight of the conveyance, and he points out that that's going to both capture, both part of the externality related to damage to transportation made due to the road, and it's also going to serve as a sort of progressive tax because, in Adam Smith's day at least, rich people had bigger wagons, and so we make them pay a larger proportion of the toll. So this anticipates a topic I'm going to get to just at the end of the lecture, I think, which is going to be the effect of Pigovian taxes on the distribution of resources across people. So we talked about making Pigovian taxes that deliver efficient outcomes. We haven't talked about how to devise a system that delivers possibly equitable solutions. So I'm going to turn to that toward the end of the lecture. Okay, anyway, but Adam Smith said it. All right, so I want to begin today by returning to an example we've talked about before. So this is just a quick review at this point. So I want to think about this problem we've talked about involving a steel factory that produces steel using some input S, but also produces some pollution. So there's an externality because people downwind of the steel plant are harmed by the pollution. So let me just remind you of the setup there. The idea is in its input S, there's a production function that has decreasing returns to scale in steel production here, you'll notice. The firm purchases S and they maximize profits. And what we've shown previously is that the private solution to the firm's problem there involves choosing a level of steel input, that's SP. In the absence of any taxes or anything, ignoring the externality that is, they'll choose a level of output which is P divided by C, that quantity squared. Okay, this is I think, all review. Okay, this is also a review. There's an externality, as I said, associated with production here. And the nature of the externality is that anyone who lives downwind, and let's say they're in, such people who live downwind, are going to suffer damages phi for every unit of S that's employed by the firm. So just think of phi is something about how damaging the pollution is to your health, for example. S is proportional to the amount of pollution that's produced, and there are N people who are damaged by it. So that seems like a reasonable sort of first approach to thinking about how to measure the damages suffered by the people who live downwind from the plant. Okay, and the catch here is that these damages are, in this story, external to the firm. They don't have any reason, their profits are unaffected by the damage suffered by the people who are downwind in this story. And so those damages, that social cost associated with their pollution, is entirely external to the firm, who's only interested in maximizing profits. Okay, so we talked about the efficient outcome of this, and what we said, the way we characterized the efficient outcome was to talk about ways of having the firm internalize this cost, or think about what a social planner would do if they got to just decide how much was allocated. And something we showed was that if the firm bore the entire cost of its pollution, or the entire cost of its employment of its input S, the marginal cost is C, which is the private cost it pays to begin with, but then there's also this cost, which is proportional to the number of people and proportional to the damage to your health that people suffer from the pollution. So the total cost for every unit of S which is employed is this quantity C plus N times V. Now, if we set up the problem so the firm internalizes that cost, and how we're going to internalize that stuff is something we'll come back to. But if we can get the firm to internalize that and produce a socially optimal quantity of stuff, then optimal level of input is going to look like this. We'll have some S star that'll equal to P divided by C, which is what we had before, but there will be an extra term related to the social damage in phi is related to the externality. So, provided n phi is positive, this is actually a negative externality instead of a positive one, then you can see that S star is going to be smaller than the private level of S, which is, where'd it go? No, where'd it go? That's not what I want to do. Here we go. Here's the private level. This is P over C squared, and this thing is P over C in phi. I am missing a squared term, though. That should be a squared term there. Okay, so the only other things I want you to notice about this efficient solution are two things. First of all, if there's more people downwind, that means that n is larger. If n is larger, what does that mean for the efficient level of S star? It should be smaller. So if we make n bigger, there's more people affected. The total correction of seal should be smaller, or use of this input S should be smaller. And similarly, if the health cost, if the cost per individual of the pollution is higher, that's measured by this quantity phi. Similarly, we should be using less of the input S. Okay. All right, so that's all review. You guys are silent because this is all happening. That's excellent. Okay, I want to come back to something which is bordering on novel now, though, and think about different mechanisms that we've talked about to make the firm bear the social cost of the pollution of this. That is, ways to have the firm internalize its externality. So there's four sort of ways to go about that we've talked about. The first is actually we haven't talked very much about this one, but one thing that the society could do is just put a cap. They could say, the government could write a letter to the manager of the firm and say, we've determined that the optimal level of input S star, S is S star, and so that's how much you're allowed to use. So there would be a sort of command and control way of tackling this externality, which would involve the government figuring out the optimal thing for the firm to do and then telling it to do it. That's one possibility. There's a variety of reasons why that's not tremendously attractive, which I won't dwell on right now. Another way we spend quite a bit of time on is to devise a Pigovian tax. So that's a case where the government doesn't say, hey, you produce S star. Instead, they say, oh, it looks to us like there's some damages, some social damages in phi associated with your use of S. And so we're going to charge you for each unit of S you use an amount which is just enough to compensate for the social damages that you're causing. Okay, so that's the Pigovian solution, and we talked a lot about that. That can lead to an efficient level of use of the input. Okay, so that's a case where the government here sets a tax which is equal to the marginal cost of the externality. So the third thing we talked about is a merger and acquisition sort of solution to this, or an integration issue. The way that would look in this case, we have a story with a steel firm and some people who live downwind and their health is harmed. One interesting way to solve this would be to require the firm, the present owners of the firm, to sell the firm to the people who live downwind. Okay, so now there's some people who live downwind of the plant. They're the owners of the firm now. They benefit from the production of steel, but they also directly bear the costs associated with the production of pollution. And so that's a possible solution, a sort of merger and acquisition solution that would also internalize the problem here by making the owners of the firm the same ones who are bearing the costs of the externality. So that's a very direct way of making this externality internal to the firm. Yes, Wes? Yeah, that's a. So Wes suggests the firm could buy the land that people are living on presently. That would involve them moving, presumably. I want to come back to that. That's going to be a more sort of Coasian approach to this. Yes, let me come back to that, to an idea along those lines later. So I've said the fourth solution is going to be a Coasian approach, which I just touched on at the end of last lecture. So I'm going to spend time today, and I'm going to do it right now, talking about sort of Coasian approaches to solving this problem. Okay, so before I do that, though, there's a useful division between the four approaches we've listed here. So the first two here involve a pretty active role for government. In the first case, the government is figuring out how much. If you imagine doing this for a bunch of plants, the government's figuring out what optimal emissions should be for each plant, and sending orders out requiring firms to comply with those optimal levels of pollution. And that's actually the way most pollution control, industrial pollution control, is still accomplished in the U.S., but it involves a lot of government sort of intervention. The second thing is Pigovian tax. That might be easier to administer from the government's point of view, but still the government has to figure out what the marginal costs are, and that could vary according to circumstances. So there's a lot of government involvement in both these first two approaches. These last two are effectively these are things that you might expect to occur privately. You may not need any government involvement to implement either a mergers or acquisition strategy or a Coasian solution. Yes. Oh, I'm going to come to that, yeah. That's right. So the question about what I'll call cap and trade in a moment. Yes? Is it necessary for a government to find property rights? You guys are anticipating what I'm going to say, so I'm going to tell you to be quiet for a moment. And bear with me for a few slides. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Okay, so we've got some possible private solutions here. The Coasian solution, remember, is going to the sort of mechanism we have in mind is we want clearly defined property rights, and then we're going to allow private parties to work out private contracts or arrangements and bargain over that stuff. And so long as the costs of that bargaining are low and property rights are clearly defined, we should expect those people pursuing their own individual self-interest to arrive at a socially efficient solution. Okay. All right, so there's problems with both of these categories of solutions. So I'm going to describe some possible problems for the kinds of government solutions we talked about, and then I'll talk about some issues for possible private solutions. This is broad. I'm not going to do any math for a few slides here. So here the issues for government solutions are effectively ones of the government need to be both very well informed and very smart. So the government needs to get collection. Imagine this trying to administer this particular scheme for either of these government schemes of a Pigovian tax or an emission standard. The government needs to collect information on the individual emissions. So they have to track exactly what the firm is doing over time. And they need to do that either to punish the firm for exceeding the standard or to collect the necessary tax. They need to keep track of how much S is used, for example. They have to do that for all the polluting firms in the country somehow. So it's kind of a big job. To do the Pigovian tax, the information you require about what the firm is doing may be a little bit less. You might not need to keep track of quite as much stuff. But you need to do sort of a trade-off. Here's a lot of information, but you don't need to be too smart. Here, you can get away with a little bit less information, but you need to be quite smart because you need to be able to go out and calculate what the marginal cost is of the pollution for each of these firms. And in our little chalkboard example where there's a bunch of identical consumers living downwind in a single steel firm, that's not too hard. We can do it in the course of a lecture. But if you have a bunch of different people who live in different places and the wind shifts and there's more than one firm, and this can get pretty complicated. And you need in particular to be able to, we run these pictures. Here's the demand curve, here's the supply curve, here's the optimal tax. That's great if you know what the demand curve and supply curve are, but actually going out and figuring out what those things are involves some real work. It's nice to have that kind of employment for economists, but economists are a scarce resource, so we should try to conserve it. Okay, so you need to be smart and well-informed to implement the government solutions here. So what do you do if prices change? That would affect the optimal level of emissions, so that would be maybe a big problem for the emission standard command and control solution. Not so much for the Pigovian thing. You could have a tax that automatically adjusted to changes in prices. That'd be fine. And then finally, I said this earlier, the efficient Pigovian tax here may not be anything like a fair tax. Okay, so those are all sort of issues to bear in mind if you're thinking about trying to implement a government-imposed solution to the problem of externalities. Okay, there are issues for private solutions as well. So these are a little harder to characterize in some ways, but let's think about the merger and acquisition solution, for example, and go back to the case I talked about a moment ago, where there's a bunch of people downwind, but maybe some people are more affected by pollution than others. Well, so this idea, which sounds I think it is kind of clever, of selling the firm to the people who are affected by the pollution, makes sense then. But for this to be the optimal solution, if people are differently affected by the pollution, you'd have to do something pretty tricky about giving more shares in the firm to people who have worse lungs or who live closer to the plant or something like that. The interest of the individuals, if they have different fees, if you will, or if they live different distances from the plant, are going to be different. They're not going to have all exactly the same preferences over how much the firm should pollute, and so you need to give them different voting rights somehow in the management of the firm. That might be something you can implement, but it's getting starting to feel like kind of a cumbersome solution because, again, with this silly little Blackboard example, we say, oh yeah, they're all the same guys. But in the real world, heterogeneity is the rule, not the exception. Here's a related thing. This is something that this is a sort of head scratcher. If you're thinking about a Coasian solution, and there's two parties, well, if there's one party and another party, and there's some externality that only affects the two of them, it seems pretty reasonable to think they can sit down and work something out. But if there's a coalition of a dozen people or 100 people, then bargaining can become a lot more complicated in ways that are maybe difficult to understand. Some parts of the coalition might try to free ride on some of the other people in the coalition. It might just be difficult to communicate. Just organizing sort of in a peer-to-peer way, a big group of people may have some costs that you can avoid if you go with a more direct sort of centralized government sort of solution. So this issue of coordination, if you've got somebody who's just the boss and can say, hey, emit this much or here's a tax, you avoid these coordination issues. So that this is a possible shortcoming of some of these private Coasian solutions. It's just that it might be difficult to reach an efficient solution if it's costly or difficult to bargain. Okay, enough about that. All right, so now I want to, actually maybe I'll take a breath for a moment. Are there questions or observations about any of those issues so far? Yes? Yeah. I think it not infrequently happens. I mean, so one case that occurs to me sort of off the top of my head, this is not pollution related, but the sale of United Airlines to its workers is an example of a deal that was supposed to correct an externality, having to do something with their pensions, I think. Let's see, I think, there's other examples you could think of. I'm not going to come up with any now. Yeah. Yes? Yeah, so I'm going to use this. Both these are weasel phrases, right? Transaction costs or bargaining costs here, is a way of saying, gee, it might be hard. This is a way of explaining why people might not be able to agree very well without taking a very disciplined stand about what the nature of the costs are. But that's we sort of you think about negotiations you engage in yourself. It's not costless, and it may be difficult to understand exactly what the source of those costs are, but presumably they're real. So I need to move away from the individuals in the firm to get an example. But there's very often some kind of externality that is thought to be corrected by any merger, really. So an example which is in the news just lately is AT&T's proposed acquisition of T-Mobile. So the idea there is you've got if you have a particular city that has a bunch of cell towers owned by T-Mobile and a bunch of owned by AT&T, there's a possible positive externality associated with an individual being able to use either of those two towers. Presently they can't. So that's a rationale one might advance in favor of that proposed acquisition. Okay, other questions or observations? Okay, let's keep going. So I want to think about a Coasian solution to this pollution externality. So instead of the people downwind buy the firm, let's think about a Coasian solution. And I'm going to call this solution cap and trade. So cap and trade schemes have a fairly lengthy history in the U.S. right now. They've been very successfully used among utilities in the Northeast. It doesn't seem too unreasonable to say that acid rain is no longer a serious environmental threat in the Northeast because of cap and trade schemes implemented among those utilities 20 years ago. And that used to be a big problem, and most of you are too young to remember, but concerns about acid rain used to be extremely salient, especially in that part of the country. Okay, so here's what we want to do. We want to think about a general pollution problem. I'm going to use my little smoke and steel example going forward here, but you'll see how it generalizes, I think. So there's sort of two things we need to do to get a Coasian solution, and this is just from the statement of the coast there. The first thing we need is a clear statement of what property rights are. So for a Coasian solution to obtain, we have to know what you get if there's no deal. That's one way of thinking about property rights. So and so the idea here, the hope with a cap and trade scheme is that initially there may not be clearly defined property rights over clean air or over pollution. I've given this example where there's a steel firm and it's belching smoke into the atmosphere. So it somehow has a de facto, if nobody's stopping it, has some kind of de facto property right to do that perhaps, even though it's not, there's no piece of paper that says, hey, you have the right to pollute as much as you want. It has a de facto right just because it's been doing it and nobody stopped it. Okay, so that's one sort of notion, that's one possible interpretation of the property right. In that case, you might have to say that the people living downwind have no property rights in the pollution if they de facto have to agree with whatever the steel firm decides to emit. Okay, so we need clearly defined property rights, and for cap and trade to work, we need those property rights to be something you can trade. So instead of saying, hey, you have the right to pollute